Well, this is the good news for the viewers who might be feeling triggered and terrified of the intensity of the healing process and integration. It all sounds very serious because it requires this kind of integrity, honesty, authenticity. However, there is an easier way to do this, and actually often propose for people to think about the easier route to healing because quantum jumps absolutely are possible. This is what explains instantaneous healing, these sorts of miracles, which really can be explained in a way of quantum physics terminology. Just thinking about how we actually occupy different states of consciousness, different quantum states. Because think of it, if we have a higher self, and that's already operating in this higher dimensional kind of a program, if we learn to tune into that higher self alone, we're able to almost teleport ourselves into this higher state of consciousness. That's a reality free of this pain, this distortion, these lower egoic limitations, the suffering, the duality. So we have an opportunity to get there very quickly if we choose to hold space for that frequency. The difficult part and what quantum jumping really entails is choosing to accommodate a frequency which is different from what you're currently experiencing. Your frequency being your energetic output. It's a different emotion, it's a different feeling, which requires a different belief system, a different expectation, everything surrounding your mental, physical state, and emotional state, which are all the tiers of consciousness that are supporting the spiritual state of your awareness. So, for people that want a quantum jump, that requires a really resolute decision to choose to be consistent with this coherency, which is possible if you choose to introduce the higher self's reality. So the first thing that's of course going to come up is how do you connect to the higher self? Because if you learn to do that, you can learn to quantum jump. That's essentially introducing this highest possibility of yourself. For people that aren't really aware of that feeling, try to imagine what it feels like to connect with this highest version of you, which you can imagine as the archetype of you with your personality, with your identity, but without the limitations. That's experiencing power, confidence, personal truth, a purpose, an intentional state of its beingness, which is coming through ultimately in this physical reality in order to achieve expansion. If you're experiencing connection to the higher self, you're able to take the best of your qualities, the best of yourself, and even these sort of non dual qualities that are source like, that are just divine, that are expressions of energy, of potentiality, wisdom, higher truth, that'll come through in your intuition, in your knowing, in your awareness. That explains why I'm able to do what I do, which when I go into a state of just channeling, just deeply connecting with someone or just letting awareness pour through, there's a clear cognizance channel that opens up in me personally. And that's something that all of us have the ability to tap into to a greater or lesser degree. The point is, we all have this higher self identity, which is constantly encouraging us to connect with a higher stream of intelligence. We can access that anytime we choose to surrender, open up, and simply receive, which the first very difficult aspect of the matrix for a lot of people to synthesize is it's so masculine in nature that it's difficult to accommodate this feminine state of consciousness, which is required to understand the energy of your higher self. To receive is to be in the feminine state. That's a feminine action. And so for people that are used to just thinking, just being logical, rationalizing, creating strategy in their day-to-day lives, it's very difficult to think about how can I just surrender and receive? That negates your egoic reasoning. It makes you challenge your own assumptions because if you have some gut feeling that comes up or some kind of an intuitive inclination to do something differently, your first thing that you're going to be doing is opposing that, finding every reason why you shouldn't introduce this almost irrational new belief or idea that comes in. Well, think about, first of all, none of these thoughts are random. If you're receiving anything, especially if you've been already on a journey to understanding yourself, receiving mastery, personal mastery, and awareness, you've been sending out that invitation for awareness to come in. You're being guided. All of us are being guided all the time. We need to start to listen and to receive this impetus for change. And so that's how we can start to literally upgrade our consciousness by first realizing we're constantly having this information relayed to us. We just need to be at the frequency at which we can receive. So something interesting happens to people when they start to listen. Some people will have ringing in their ears. They'll start to literally have like this higher frequency transmission come in. Very often I hear this. People are thinking maybe it's tinnitus, like it's a condition, but then realizing, no, this is different. It happens sporadically. There's no medical reason for this. It's simply a sign that you are tuning into this higher frequency or like a higher octave of your own consciousness, which is giving you information that you need to start to physically, viscerally let in. And if your brain is intercepting that, then you're not going to be able to actually feel the nature of that awareness. So if you want to go through a quantum jump, you first need to be okay with holding a higher frequency. You need to realize that what you're currently dealing with is probably some degree of doubt, skepticism. Maybe you're cynical about the whole thing. Maybe you can't imagine receiving anything that will allow you to transmute these lower density energies. But it's possible. So the first thing to also think about is if you're dealing with any kind of resistance to transformation or to change, you're blocking the quantum jump. This is the most, counterintuitive yet obvious thing that comes through. A lot of people, they want to change, but then when you hear them talk about introducing that change, they're like, no, it's impossible. Or maybe they just don't think that they deserve better, or they think that everything has to be difficult or there's a struggle. So I always encourage people to think about what is their underlying expectation about change itself. Because from my perspective and from a higher dimensional perspective, change is everything. Change is the default. Everything's in flux. It's the only constant in life. It's change. And so, if you want to be open to quantum jumping, to essentially spontaneously shifting into higher states of consciousness, you need to realize that change is that default. It's the golden ticket to realizing your higher self, realizing that is always present, and you've been the one obstructing your ability to actually instantaneously move into these higher states of consciousness. And so, to quantum jump, you then need to identify what is the new state you want to hold. What is that new program going to include? Because ultimately, this is about integrating a new program into your field and keeping it there, not entertaining it as a one time thought, not manifesting something in your reality that you want to have change, but becoming the vessel of consciousness that can manifest and become that change because you're living on a new frequency. And when you make that decision, very often everything will come in that needs to come in. Your subconscious will start to rewire itself to hold this new possibility, but you have to believe it on every level of your being. So your mind needs to be in accordance with it. Your emotional state needs to be ready for that change. You physically need to be open and submitting to this higher frequency reality. And there can be no doubt left in the system because as soon as that skepticism creeps in, you are just annihilating the possibility of that transformation. And so that's really what it takes to quantum jump. I always have this universal intention to raise consciousness. Everything I do is with that intention. And that's actually what fuels my intuitive moments, my channeling. I don't think about it. I don't plan the script. I don't think about what I'm about to say, but there's always an intention there, which is really rock solid in my subconscious at this point, which is to share something that's going to bring value in expanding people's consciousness, which on the other side of the camera is always going to be somebody that's looking to peel back that veil between their subconscious and conscious minds and see and hear something that's going to resonate with them and inspire them to do this work for themselves. So it's that desire to expand consciousness, which is very loaded. It sums a lot of this up. We have to want to expand consciousness to even be on this journey of expansion and to achieve change and to choose to empower ourselves to empower other people and to do whatever it means individually to actually be this change maker, to be more conscious. And to be conscious is everything. I mean, it's such an all-inclusive term in terms of how present are you, how aware are you of yourself, how congruent are you, like we've been saying, inside and out, to where you are transparent, you're honest, you're authentic, you're doing things with the right intention in every moment, which is just a feeling of being in alignment. It's something that needs to correspond in terms of the heart and the mind. And so for me, it's always a compassionate energy. I think when we are really in a state of expanding consciousness, we're choosing to feel into that need for expansion, which relates to what I spoke about earlier. We have to feel into the collective state. If there's disunity, it should empower us to be more present so that we can hold space for that unity, to become that agent of change in both our own lives and in other people's lives. But the intention for me personally also is to just focus on encouraging people to see that they're more powerful than they usually think they are. And very often we're still trying to maybe get an answer from somebody else, which often even the people I work with that come to me, they're often asking me for answers. And I like to shut that down pretty quickly in the conversation, because in that loss of power is the loss of realization of how to connect to your own consciousness. And that's where this magic is found. It's in realizing that if you master your connection to the higher self, to your own soul, you can start to literally upgrade your awareness and be taught along the way. And that's something I wanted to speak to earlier to answer your question about knowing and intuition in my personal journey. It's really interesting. I've never spoken about this before, but I can honestly say that I have felt like I've been taught by my own higher self, and it's what's causing me to be upgraded over time. I don't have a personal mentor. I have not read even many spiritual or self help books. So this is completely uncanny. Probably something you haven't heard many people share. But whenever I set that intention to receive more and open up to my own higher self, I'm realizing there's so much that wants to come in to inspire me to step in my power, to receive more, to feel more, to share more, that's really the only motivation that I need. And that will connect me then with the right sources all around me, which I'm inspired by so many different people. And there's just instant flow at that point. The flow state never really ends, and you don't need to look for inspiration because you're constantly in flow. And that's the beautiful space to be in. So that's what I realized when I started writing those articles. First, I thought, I don't know where this is coming from. I don't believe it. I should stop doing it. People are going to think it's strange. Then I started posting online, on Facebook, just doing postings and different quotes. I realized through the response that people are actually interested. So I thought, okay, why not? I'll do a little bit more. Then I started to talk about it. My confidence was not very high. I didn't really know what I was doing. I did it anyway. And I got to the point where sometimes my mouth can't shut because there's so much flow coming in that I realize I just need to keep letting myself be in this flow, let it pour out. And that refines the flow. And I've realized I become more of a channel, more of an instrument, the more that I quite literally allow it to happen. And that seems to be a universal thing. It's certainly not just me going through this kind of experience. Anybody that opens up to support their process of evolution will be receiving more and more. It's going to clarify this journey. You're going to realize you are already extremely intelligent, extremely wise. You just need to trust yourself to even be going through this kind of process of downloading from the higher self what it takes to support the honest archetype, the archetype of the higher self in physical form. And if we can even think in those terms, we can understand the right intentions will come with time. The ultimate intention is just to be that soul in physical form. So I certainly intend for humanity, for more and more people to wake up to this ability to not be this ego dancing through unconsciousness in an unconscious way, but to try to be their higher self in physical form and to see where that takes them and to allow this alignment to keep unfolding in natural ways, because that's what it's going to take to change reality and to go through these times of change in the most organic way possible, because a lot of people are going through it.